Some stories don't shout, they don't break things, they just sit quietly inside someone until one day the truth can't stay hidden anymore. This is one of the stories.
I want to tell you something I have never said out loud to anyone. Not to my sister, not to my closest friend, not even to God in the way you say things clearly with words, instead of just sitting in the dark and hoping He already knows. I have carried this for a long time, and I think the reason I never said it is because saying it out loud makes it real in a way that is hard to come back from. But I am ready now. So, let me start from the beginning, the real beginning, not the part where everything fell apart, the part where everything felt like it was finally coming together. Her name was Adaora, 34 years old, worked long shifts at a government hospital in Enugu as a radiographer. You know those people whose job is to look through the surface of things and find what is hiding underneath? That was her job, every single day. And the painful irony of this story is that she was very good at her job, just not at home. She was not loud. She was not the kind of woman who filled a room with her presence before she even entered it. She was the kind of woman you noticed slowly, the kind whose face you remember 3 days after meeting her because something about it stayed with you and you could not explain why. She noticed small things, she remembered everything. If you told her something once, she held it. Weeks later, months later, she would ask about it like it mattered, because to her, it did.
She spent her life seeing what others couldn't. But sometimes the hardest truths are the ones closest to us.
She had been with Obiora for 6 years. 6 years is not a small thing. 6 years is school holidays and hospital visits and family funerals and small arguments about nothing and big silences about everything and Sunday mornings where you do not even need to talk because you have already learnt the shape of each other. 6 years is a whole life built inside another life.
6 years. That is not just time. That is trust. That is memory. That is a future already imagined.
Obiora was 38. He ran a printing and branding company, small but busy. He was not flashy. He did not chase attention. He was the kind of man who showed up quietly and stayed. Or at least, that was what she believed for 6 years. He proposed 14 months before this story reaches its worst point. It was not dramatic. No restaurant, no crowd, no person hiding behind a bush with a camera. Just the two of them in her small apartment after dinner. He had the ring in his pocket for 3 weeks before that evening. She found that out later from his younger brother, who told her the story the way people tell stories about happy things that have since become painful. Obiora sat across from her at the small dining table, and he said she was the only person who made him feel like home. She said yes before he finished the sentence. They had been planning the wedding for 14 months by the time this story reaches the burial ground. The invitations had already been designed. He printed them himself. She still has one. Now let me tell you about the kind of relationship they had, because I need you to understand what she thought she was protecting before I tell you what she lost. They were not perfect. No real couple is. They argued sometimes about money and about time and about the way he could go quiet for days when something was bothering him instead of just saying what it was. She had her own things too. She worked too much. She brought the hospital home with her sometimes. The weight of other people's sickness sitting on her shoulders, even when she was supposed to be resting. But they came back to each other, always. That is the thing about a real relationship. It is not the arguments that define it. It is the coming back. She believed they always came back. Looking back now, she should have noticed that somewhere in the last 2 years, the coming back started to feel slightly different. Not wrong, just different. The way a familiar song sounds. When someone plays it in the wrong key, all the notes are there. but something underneath has shifted. She noticed it the way you notice a smell you cannot identify. Just a small thing, easily explained away. The evenings he came home and the scent on his clothes was not his. He said it was a client's office. She believed him because she wanted to. The weekend in Abuja for a printing exhibition that she searched for once online and could not find. She told herself she had the name wrong. She believed that because she wanted to. The way he puts his phone face down sometimes. Just a small practiced movement, nothing dramatic. Just a habit she had not noticed before that had quietly become part of his daily life without her ever seeing it begin. She noticed all of these things, and she explained every single one of them away, because when you love someone for 6 years, you become very skilled at protecting the story you have built together, even when the story is starting to show cracks, even when the cracks are not accidents. Before I continue, I want to pause and ask you something. Where are you watching us from right now? Drop your country in the comment section. Because this story is going to places I did not expect when I started telling it, and I want to know who is traveling with me. The burial was for Mama Okonko, an old woman from their church. Everybody loved Mama Okonko. She was the kind of woman who knew every name in the congregation and prayed for each person specifically, not generally. Not Lord bless your children, but Lord be with Adaora's hands at the hospital today. That kind of woman. She passed quietly after a long illness. Nobody was shocked, but everybody was sad. The kind of sad that comes not from surprise, but from the simple truth that the world has one less good person in it. Adaora arrived slightly late. Work had held her. She was still in her uniform under a black wrapper she had tied quickly in the car at the hospital car park. She moved through the crowd carefully, looking for Obiora. He had texted her that morning to say he was already there, that he had saved her a seat near the front. She looked near the front. He was not there. She moved through the rows of people slowly, nodding at familiar faces, accepting the small sad smiles that people exchange at burials. She was looking for him without rushing because there was no reason to rush. She was just looking for her fiancé at a burial, that was all. She found him at the far left side of the burial ground, standing under a neem tree, slightly apart from the main crowd. He was not alone. There was a woman beside him.
There is a kind of heartbreak that doesn't make sound. It just changes everything in a single moment.
And I want you to understand something before I describe what Adaora saw. Because this is the part of the story that people usually rush through to get to the drama. But the truth is that the most painful part was not dramatic at all. The most painful part was very quiet. The woman was standing close to Obiora, not the way strangers stand close at a crowded burial because there is no space, but the kind of close that comes from familiarity, the kind of close that has a history inside it. And Obiora's hand was on her back, not her shoulder, her back. Lo, the way you touch someone you have touched many times before, and it no longer requires a decision. It just happens the way breathing happens, because it has become that natural. Adaora stopped walking. She did not scream, she did not march across the burial ground and demand an explanation in front of Mama Okonko's open grave. She was not that kind of woman. And even if she was, this moment was too big for noise. So she stood there, 3 rows behind him, and she watched for 4 minutes. She saw the woman lean close and say something in his ear. She saw Obiora smile, not a polite smile, not a social smile, a private one. The kind that lives deep in a person and only comes out for specific people. She knew that smile. She had believed for 6 years that it was hers alone. She saw him look around once. A quick, careful look. the kind people do when they want to confirm they are not being seen. He did not see her. She saw the woman rest her head briefly on his arm. He did not move away. He did not stiffen. He did not create any distance. He simply stood there and let it happen with the ease of a man in a place he had been many times before. Adaora stood in that crowd with Mama Okonkwo being lowered into the earth ahead of her. And she understood something in that moment that no amount of explaining away could touch. She understood that the things she had been calling coincidences were not coincidences. She understood that the notes that had been playing slightly wrong for 2 years were wrong because the song had changed. And she understood that she was the last person to know.
Not a mistake, not a moment, a choice, repeated over time.
She drove home before the burial ended. She told him her phone had died. She told him work called her back. She kept her voice completely normal, the way you keep your voice normal when you are standing on the edge of something and one wrong sound will send you over. That night, lying in her bed in her apartment, staring at the ceiling in the dark, she did not cry immediately. She just lay there, and in the quiet, every small thing she had explained away came back to her, one by one, slowly, like a line of people who had been waiting patiently outside a door that had finally been opened. The perfume, the Abuja trip, the phone placed face down, the smile she thought only she knew. And lying there in the dark, she realized something that changed the shape of everything she thought she knew. She had not been in a relationship for 6 years. She had been in half of one, and she had been the only person who did not know. That was the night everything she had built her future on began to come apart. But what happened next, what she found out, what she did, and what it cost her, that is the part that will stay with you long after this story ends. There is a particular kind of strength that looks like nothing from the outside. It does not announce itself. It does not break things or raise its voice or fall apart in front of people. It just gets up the next morning. It goes to work. It reads the scans. It tells patients the truth about what is hiding inside their bodies because that is the job, and the job still has to be done regardless of what is happening inside your own chest. That was Adaora for the 4 days after the burial. She got up, she went to work, she came home, she spoke to Obiora on the phone each evening in a voice that gave nothing away. She asked about his day, she answered his questions, she said good night. And then she lay in the dark and paid attention to herself, to the feelings moving through her, to the things she knew and the things she still needed to understand before she could say them out loud. She was not gathering evidence. She was not setting a trap. She was doing something harder than both of those things. She was preparing herself to hear the truth without running from it. On the fourth day, she asked him to come to her apartment after work. She made tea, not because she wanted tea, just because her hands needed something to do. When he sat down across from her at that same small dining table where he had proposed 14 months ago, she looked at him for a moment before she spoke. She wanted to remember his face exactly as it was in that moment, before everything shifted. Then she told him what she saw, not loudly, not with tears, just clearly. The tree, the position, the hand on the woman's back, the smile, the head on his arm. She described it the way she describes scan results to patients, precisely, without decoration, because the truth does not need decoration, it only needs to be said. She watched his face move through 3 different expressions in the space of 10 seconds. First, surprise. Real surprise, but not the surprise of a man who has been falsely accused. The surprise of a man who did not expect to be caught in this specific way. Second, calculation. She could see it, the brief moments where a person is deciding which version of the truth to offer. Third, and this was the one that told her everything, relief. A small, quiet, exhausted relief. The kind that belongs to someone who has been carrying something heavy for a very long time and has just been told they can finally put it down. He did not deny it immediately. He paused. And in that pause, 6 years rearranged themselves inside her chest into something she did not have a word for yet. He talked for a long time. He said it started as nothing. He said the woman, her name was Chisom, had been going through a difficult time and he had just been a friend to her. He said it became complicated gradually. He said he had been planning to end it. He said he loved Adaora. He said the wedding was still real and still what he wanted. He said Chisom did not mean what Adaora was thinking she meant. He said many things. Adaora listened to all of them, and then she asked him one question. She asked him when it started. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said almost 2 years ago. Almost 2 years ago. She did the calculation without meaning to, the way her mind always worked quickly with numbers and timelines. Almost 2 years ago was 8 months before he proposed. 8 months before he sat at this same table with a ring in his pocket that he had been carrying for 3 weeks and told her she was the only person who made him feel like home. She nodded slowly when she understood that. She did not shout. She just nodded, the way you nod when something you already knew somewhere deep inside you finally arrives at the surface. She asked him to leave. He tried to say more. She asked him again, quietly, to leave. He left. She did not contact him for 3 weeks. He sent messages, long ones, short ones, voice notes she could see the duration of but did not play. His mother called once. She let it ring. His younger brother, the one who had told her about the 3 weeks the ring spent in Obiora's pocket before the proposal, sent a short message that just said he was sorry. She appreciated that one. She replied with a simple thank you and nothing else. She was not punishing anyone during those 3 weeks. She was just living inside the reality of what had happened without letting anyone rush her through it. She went to work. She read scans, she ate, she slept not well, but she slept. She called her mother twice and talked about ordinary things because she was not ready to say the big thing out loud to family yet. She sat in her car in the hospital car park some evenings and ate takeaway food alone and listened to old songs and let herself feel whatever arrived without fighting it. Some evenings it was grief. Some evenings it was anger, quiet and clean. Some evenings it was something that surprised her, a strange lightness, like a person who has been holding their breath for a long time and has just been given permission to exhale. On the 19th day, something happened that she did not expect. A message arrived from a number she did not recognize. She almost did not open it. But something made her read the first line, and the first line made her read the rest. The message was from Chisom, not aggressive, not threatening, not the message of a woman coming to fight over a man. It was the message of someone who sounded as tired as Adaora felt. Chisom wrote that she had found Adaora's number through someone they both knew slightly from church. She wrote that she was not reaching out to cause more pain. She wrote that she needed Adaora to know something because she believed Adaora deserved to know it. She wrote that she had not known about the engagement for the first full year. She found out 8 months ago. 8 months ago was around the same time Obiora proposed. When Chisom found out, she had tried to end it. She had told Obiora she could not continue knowing he was engaged to someone else. She had meant it, she had tried. But Obiora had told her things. He had told her the engagement was a family pressure situation, that his family had been pushing for years and he had given in temporarily, but it was not real. He had told Chisom that Adaora knew things were not working. He had told her the wedding would not happen, He had told Chisom that she, Chisom, was the one he was actually choosing. Adaora read that message sitting on the edge of her bed at 11 o'clock at night. She read it 3 times, and then she sat very still for a long time, because she understood now the full shape of what Obiora had built. Not just a secret, a whole parallel structure. Two women, each believing she was the real one. Two relationships, each being fed just enough truth to keep it alive. One man standing in the middle of both, telling each of them exactly what she needed to hear to stay. Two women, same words, same man. The thing that moved Adaora most was not her own pain in that moment. It was Chisom's message. Because Chisom did not have to send it, she could have stayed silent. She could have let Adaora believe the smaller version of the story, the one where there was one mistake and one moment of weakness, which is painful enough but survivable in a different way. Instead, she sent the truth. Because she believed Adaora deserved to have all of it. Adaora replied with 2 sentences. She thanked Chisom for telling her, and she told her she hoped they both found better.
Sometimes the truth doesn't come from the person who hurt you. It comes from someone who was hurt too.
She cancelled the wedding over the following 2 weeks. One phone call at a time, one booking at a time, one quiet conversation at a time with people who asked questions she answered briefly and honestly without going into everything. The last thing she cancelled was the hall. After she hung up from that call, she sat at her dining table for a long time.
This is what strength look like. Not noise, not revenge. Just choosing yourself one decision at a time.
Then she went to the drawer where she had put one of the printed invitations. She took it out and looked at it. His company had printed it. His hands had held it before hers. His machine had pressed the ink into the paper with his name and her name side by side, surrounded by a design he had chosen himself. She looked at it for a while. Then she put it back in the drawer, not as pain, not as punishment for herself, just as a reminder, the kind of reminder that does not make you bitter if you look at it correctly, the kind that makes you careful, the kind that teaches you the difference between a man who is ready to love you and a man who is only ready to need you. Those are two very different things, and they can look identical for a very long time. 6 months after the burial, Adaora is sitting in her car in the hospital car park after a long shift. She has a container of jollof rice from the woman who sells near the gate. She has the radio on low. The evening is warm, the way Enugu evenings are warm, the air smelling faintly of rain that came in the afternoon and dried before she finished work. She is tired, the real kind of tired that comes from a job that asks a lot of you and a life that has asked even more. But she is clear, not healed completely. She will tell you herself that some mornings she wakes up and the weight is still there, not as heavy as before, but present. The way an old injury reminds you of itself when the weather changes. But she is no longer confused. And she has learned something she carries with her now into every examination room, every conversation, every moment where she has to look at something carefully and report honestly what she finds. She has learned that her greatest skill, the ability to look through the surface of things and find what is truly there, was never supposed to stop at the hospital door. She deserved that same clarity in her own life. She eats her rice. She listens to the radio. She starts the car. She drives. If you are somewhere in this story, whether you are the person who kept explaining things away or the person who is sitting with a truth you are not ready to say out loud yet, this story was always for you. You are not foolish for loving someone completely. That is not where you went wrong. You went right, actually. The person who went wrong is the one who took something that honest and used it carefully to keep themselves comfortable. That is not your failure. That is their choice, and you deserve someone whose love for you does not require them to hide. Thank you for staying until the very end of this story. If it touched something real inside you, please like it and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to Best Tales of Africa and turn on your notification bell so you never miss a story like this one. I read every comment, every single one. You are not just viewers to this page, you are the reason these stories get told. This is not just a page, this is Best Tales of Africa, and you are part of this family.
If you have ever ignored what your heart was trying to tell you, this story understands you. And one day, you will choose yourself too.